45 lasso right. Perfect. All right, big time football is back. The CFL season begins this week. I'm Thomas Pockernick. You guys already know Luca Celebre. Luca.
Might not.
What's going on, man? Are you excited for the return of the CFL or what?
I am excited for the return of the CFL. And like a lot of people know, watching Bar Down content, we're fans of all sports.
Yeah.
And we happen to love football of every kind. CFL, NFL, college, XFL, arena football, whatever football there is. We also play in a touch football league, your league. So like we love football and we want to talk about football more, and so we're trying something.
Yeah. Welcome to Huddle Up.
There we go.
This is our football show on Bar Down here. We are going to aim for weekly shows, weekly content, mostly oriented around player interviews. We do have a pretty special guest joining us later today, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it. But yeah, like you said, obviously, Bar Down. Obviously, the hockey content's big. Everyone knows you as the big Colorado Avalanche fan, but I'm gonna give you your flowers here a little bit because you're a pretty nasty football player. I gotta say.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Guy does it on both ends. Wide receiver, DB, not quite CFL level, and I said, we're gonna be joined by a CFL player later today. But yeah, you can definitely get it done on the gridiron, and I'm excited to get into the show today and be doing these every week.
Me too, and you can get it done. Don't be so humble.
I'm a game manager quarterback. If a guy's open, usually I hit him, but I just, I grew up watching Anthony Calvillo of the Montreal Alouettes and used to sometimes model my game after him. I'll say that.
You sling it. And this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to try and aim for a guest every week from a different team across the league. We're starting with the BC Lions and Stampeders because they opened the season. And so we wanted to get a guest from the BC Lions, and we got a first-time All-Star with us.
Yeah.
He was a great player last year. He's been a great player in his entirety of his career. Went to Clemson. That's where his college career was before coming up here. It's Garry Peters.
Yeah, one of the veterans in the league. Phenomenal 5-interception season last year. Let's bring him in now to the huddle. Garry Peters, what is going on, my man?
What's going on, fellas? Nice to finally meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, we're pretty stoked for the CFL season opener. We can imagine you're excited as well. You guys got a lot to build on from a strong season last year. But let's talk about you first of all. You had a really, really strong year last year going into your sixth season in the league. 5 interceptions, and you made your first ever CFL All-Star appearance. So, what can we expect from Garry Peters this year?
Hopefully the same thing. I feel like every year my game has grown. I know even though I'm 31, I feel like I'm just getting mentally more sharper, knowing the game, knowing what's coming, what to expect. So for me, I just try to go out there and be as consistent as I can for the team and try to show up every day. And that's my mindset. I love to win. I love being out there with my teammates. So for me, just getting better just comes natural with being out there every day.
You guys opened the season against the Calgary Stampeders. There's obviously, you've seen them a bunch of times, but how last season ended, is there a little more meaning to this season opener? And just what's the mood around the locker room going into week 1 here?
Everybody's just anxious. The preseason is a separate animal in itself. You're kind of excited to just play a football game, but now it's like it's the real thing and it's here and it really matters. So everybody's just anxious to get out there and see what type of team we are and see what we can put forward on the field. I know I'm ready to go on the road, to travel. I love traveling, staying in hotels for the night. So we're all excited to get up there and start the season.
Awesome. Now, I want to talk to you about the defense specifically. Obviously, your offense got a ton of love last year, especially with how you guys started the year. But I thought defensively you guys were really, really underrated. You were second in the league in points allowed and yards allowed per game, third in the league in sacks. What makes you guys so special as a defensive unit out there?
I feel like it starts at the top, with our coach, RP. He's very consistent. And then leaders like me and TJ, we don't take any days off from practice. We're the same people every day. And I feel like that attitude just leaks out through the rest of the locker room and the rest of the defense. We're another year under the same defense. So everyone understands the playbook a lot more. If you look across the board, we got a lot of older guys, veteran guys who understand where they need to be on the field and what it takes throughout the week to show up and be great on game day. And we're way further ahead as far as like installation and as far as like understanding each other and where we fit off each other. So I feel like our defense is only going to be better this year. You know, the secondary, we had 3 All-Stars last year. One of them is gone, but everybody in that secondary is fighting to be the best. So you talk to those guys, they feel like they're the best player on the team, you know, and just having that mindset as a defense and just understanding what it takes to win, you know, that's big, especially with a lot of older guys in the room. So I feel like we're going to take another step this year. We pride ourselves. We talk every day about being the #1 defense in the league. So I feel like we're going to go out there and try to prove it this year.
You mentioned leadership there and talking about just feeling like you're the best on a specific unit. And I feel like Vernon Adams Jr. carries that confidence and swagger with him.
For sure.
The biggest question going into the year is going to be at quarterback. Just what have you seen from him and what makes Vernon so special, not just as a football player, but as a leader coming into his first full season with the Lions?
So I've seen his growth from last year to this year from where he just got the playbook and was just coming around the guys. Like, he didn't, you know, he tried to just fit in, you know, kind of it's coming into a new locker room. You don't know the culture. You don't know everybody's name. So last year was kind of him just fitting in and just being one of the guys. This year he's standing out more. He's more of a leader. You see, he brought us all to Seattle for a weekend. Anything the guys need in the locker room, he's the first one willing to do it. He's staying late after practice. You can tell his focus is a lot different as far as him watching film and coming up to the DBs and asking, like, what did you see on that play? Like, how was that coverage? Like, Vernon texting me every week and just like, oh, you're on point, man. Like, or whatever it is he's seeing out there that can help me be better. So you notice that from him as a player. And then I would say off the field, just him being around the guys and being comfortable with being himself. Like, his kids are in the locker room now because we're a big family-oriented team. So, like, he's more open to bringing his family around. And you can just tell he's more comfortable than opposed to last year. And then those guys that he has around him, whether it's Lucky, Rhymes, a breakout player that I think this year is going to be Alex Hollins, Hatcher, or even the other receiver we got, Justin. So all those guys are just going up, making plays for him. Like, even today, the offense killed us in practice. Like, it was brutal. But you have those days we go back and forth. But you can just see the growth in him and also Jordan just understanding his strength and his weaknesses a lot more. So that's just making them so much better on that side of the ball.
Love that you brought up how good the offense has been. I mean, I was just telling Luca before we got on, like, I think Vernon Adams is such a dynamic, electric athlete. I'm really, really excited to see him. And he's really got a great core of weapons around him that I think, I mean, obviously you guys lose Nathan Rourke, but him stepping in, I don't think you guys will really miss a beat because your wide receivers are just so good. You had 3 wide receivers with over 1,000 yards last year. They're all coming back. But really as a whole, I think in the CFL right now, there's just like a surplus of great receiver talent. You're a defensive back, obviously. Do you think you could give us a list of your top 5 wide receivers in the league right now?
All right, my top 5, and I'm going to keep it real with you. My top 5 would be, I would say, Keon Hatcher, Dominique Rams, Kenny Lawler, Lucky, Whitehead, and then to throw a 5th out there. And I'm just telling you guys just based on who's the hardest cover for me. A sneaky one, I would say Alex Hollins. Like, I feel like 4 out of the 5 are on my team, you know. Like,
I
just
love
being
that.
completely,
you gotta support your guys.
Just completely honest with you, like, who's the toughest cover for me. So I would just say Alex Hollins, and then maybe like someone who a lot of people don't talk about is like maybe like a Keon Shepherd Baker. But like those guys are the top in my book as far as the toughest cover. I know you got guys with better numbers in those or whatever who make great catches for their team, but as far as me, the hardest 5 guys for me to cover are those guys I just named.
What makes Lawler and Schaefer Baker, well, because you got your teammates in there as well, but like Lawler and Schaefer Baker specifically, I feel like body type wise, like they're both big, but they can also run and like just high point the ball, make like some incredible catches.
A lot of times the bigger guys are a lot easier to cover because they can't move as well at the line or get the defensive back to move off his spot as well as other small receivers or shiftier receivers. But for those guys, especially Kenny Lawler, like he catches everything. So just get in his area, you know, he knows how to play with his body. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he knows how to run a great tempo route. And that's one thing I like in receivers who run great routes, have strong hands, and snatch the ball out the air. So for me, I feel like if it's in his radius, he's going to catch it. So that's what makes him so good. You don't have to be the fastest or the biggest. As long as you know how to run really good, crispy routes and understand the game. And I feel like That's what sets him apart. And then Shepard Baker, he's running really good routes as well, and then he's surprisingly fast. So like he'll get up on you really quick and you won't even know it. Next thing you know, he's breaking down on a comeback route. And he makes a lot of plays for his team. So that's why those are the toughest cover guys for me. You have other guys, who I haven't mentioned, but I just feel like they impact the game a lot. But as far as running routes and knowing how to snatch the ball and have late hands and things like that, those guys are really good at those things. So that's what I look for in great receivers.
We've had a lot of debates around the office, talking about covering receivers, and these guys are just so fast. We've had a ton of debates around the office of what the hardest position to play in football is. Your position, DB's gotten a lot of love, but obviously quarterback gets thrown around there. Do you have a comment on the hardest position to play?
We walk backwards every play, so
Yeah.
And we're covering the fastest guys on the field. So I feel like offensive line is pretty hard, but defensive back, especially those halfback spots, man. So much space in there. I'm not even gonna say just cornerback. The halfback spot is really hard and really tough. So like for me, it's gonna always be defensive back, because another thing that happens is in the game, you play off of emotions. If things are going good, you feel one way. Things are going bad, you feel a certain way. So a lot of times, if like a touchdown's given up, a DB is singled out. So you have to deal with a lot of that pressure of, dang, I just gave up a touchdown. I let down 45 other guys on the team. If an O-line misses a block, you don't notice it that much. A D-line misses a gap, you won't notice it as much. It's still a big thing, but you won't notice it as much as a guy giving up 7 points on the board. So I feel like that's the hardest thing to do, most physically and mentally, when you put those things together. There's a lot of physical and a lot of mental, but the put them together is definitely defensive back.
Yeah, and in the CFL too, like you got the waggle from receivers too.
And then the run and start. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's second and 4. Your coach is telling you to play tight coverage. He's running full speed downhill at you. It's like, man.
Good luck.
Yeah.
A couple more questions here for you. As far as just coming up to Canada, you played college in Clemson, but just what was maybe the biggest misconception of Canada and the CFL you had before you came up here, or something just you didn't know about the CFL or Canada as a country before coming up here? Because I imagine it was an adjustment at the beginning coming up to this freezing cold country.
I didn't know what I was going to expect coming to Canada, but when I got here, I just fell in love with the country. You don't always, when they showed us the map growing up as a child, like they put Canada at the top of the map and it just being like gray letters, and like every other state in the USA would be like in a different color. So you would think like it's super gloomy up there. But when I actually got to Canada, which was Edmonton at first, that's where I played at. I was driving through downtown. I'm like, oh man, like, I don't know about this. But once you start meeting the people and like just understanding the Canadian culture and how things are, you begin to fall in love with the country. I love the food here. I love the people, like how nice they are. And then another thing is just like, as far as Vancouver, like just the city vibe, downtown, you get tall buildings. You in some areas you feel like you're in Miami, other areas you might feel like you're in Colorado. So you just get there. And then even Kamloops is just like in the mountains. It's just like, it's so beautiful and so peaceful. So for me, just like coming up here is just like a breath of fresh air for me. So I would definitely raise my family in Canada, like especially now. Because before this, I wouldn't even come to Canada other than the CFL.
Obviously, you're in BC with the Lions. Do you have a favorite city to sort of? Earlier, you mentioned you like going on the road. Is there a favorite sort of place to play?
So for me, my lady has turned me into a big foodie. So I don't know if all the guys like it, but I like being in Montreal. Just like as far as city wise, I get to like be on the strip. I don't have to walk too far, and I get to see so much things like in a little bit of time, because I'm not a guy who just like tours the whole city while we're visiting. But on the drive in, you see like the water, you see the Six Flags. And then once we get to the city, it's just like all different kind of foods there. So it's just like, for me, that's my favorite place to go and have dinner and just walk down the strip with my teammates and then go back to the hotel. So it would be Montreal other than BC. So it would be BC, Montreal, and then maybe Toronto.
Great spot. Yeah, Montreal's got so much great food too.
Yeah, I love it there.
You never have a bad meal. We're going to end with a little segment we want to call 3 downs. So first down, second down, third down. Give us 3 reasons why the BC Lions will win the Grey Cup this season.
3 reasons why the BC Lions will win the Grey Cup. Number 1, we'll win it because of our veteran leadership. Let's say that. Got a lot of veteran guys on offense and defense this year. I feel like they understand what it takes. They played in a lot of big games. We were one game away last year, so we all got that sour taste in our mouth. So that's reason number one. Number two, on second down, we'll win the Grey Cup because we're the best team in the league. I feel like offense, defense, special teams. We have good depth, whether that's American, Canadian, at all positions. Reason number three would be we're gonna win the Grey Cup because I have never won one before. So yeah, it's time to finally get that Grey Cup. So those will probably be my three reasons of us winning the Grey Cup. So
Love it.
Luck should be on our side this year.
All right, Garry Peters, we appreciate your time. We're definitely rooting for you this season. Thank you
Thank
for
y'all.
joining
Are
the
y'all
huddle
Calgary
with us
fans?
today.
No, we didn't have anything else, so we had that logo in there, and we're just like, we got to get a BC Lions thing. I know.
For sure, we got to get you guys something.
Here,
we gotta send
I'm
you guys
moving it
something.
right now.
That's better. That's better. Yeah, we got.
It's out of the shot.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, we'll get a BC Lions helmet up
guys,
here.
Man, it's been fun, and hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely.
for sure. Best of luck on Thursday.
Thank you so much. We'll do.
Let us know what you think of these interviews too. Drop some questions in the comments, whether you liked it, whether you didn't, whatever the case is. But honestly, like, what questions do you want us to ask these athletes? They all have such interesting stories and backgrounds because they're all, for the most part, if you're not Canadian, you're coming here from another country that you've probably never been to, and especially in these smaller cities, like, not that Vancouver's small, but you're going to Toronto if you've ever come to Canada. You're going to Montreal maybe, but you're not going to Vancouver. You're not going to Edmonton or Calgary. So it's always cool to just research these guys and talk about their stories and talk about the season.
Yeah, I thought that was great insight. Obviously, both of us grew up in Canada. You don't think about how we're viewed sometimes in States, and for him to say, like, how he was sort of taught to him, just the great part on the map. And now he's come here. He's had a long, very successful career in the CFL. And his BC Lions are going to be a top team this year. They were one game away from the Grey Cup last year. And who knows? Hopefully Garry Peters is a big piece in a long, successful season for the Lions.
It'll be fun to see. And this is probably the part of the show where we explain to you what comes next, because we're just trying this. We don't know if this format is going to stay the same. Like, we're test driving all of this right now in week one, which maybe we should have had a preseason of our own, but we don't have one. So we're going to be doing a lot of things. We'll play some games with each other, tier lists. We'll bring in some guests, maybe as far as like the Bar Down squad goes, because there's other football fans. But I think part of it too is also we're going to talk about the league. Like, we're going to talk about the biggest storylines. We're going to talk about the biggest games. We're just going to consume the league and have the conversations that you're having with your friends about the league.
Yeah, and what better thing to do before the season starts? Everyone's record 0-0, the perfect time of the league. I always say this, there's hope for every franchise. It is a great time to lock in our 2023 Grey Cup predictions. Now, I was at the Grey Cup last year.
You were.
Let me tell you, I've never been
so
that cold in my life. It was
Sasky.
minus 27 in Saskatchewan. But being on that sideline, it was a crazy game. Blocked field goals, interceptions, all in the last couple of minutes. Being on that Argos sideline, seeing the emotion in the players was really, really special. And it may even give me an edge in picking my Grey Cup winner over you, because I got a pretty spicy matchup here, got some really cool storylines, and I think it might just come to fruition.
Who you got then?
All right, I'll let you have it. Who I got? We'll start with one of the teams that I have going into the Grey Cup, and that's the BC Lions. We just spoke with Garry Peters. If you look at BC last season, Nathan Rourke obviously stole all the storylines. He's now gone south of the border to play with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that causes some concern for some people. But honestly, if you look at this team, if you look at the weapons that they have, said earlier, 3 receivers with over 1,000 yards last year. All 3 are coming back to the team. You got Vernon Adams, who I think is going to be more comfortable next year under center with more support, an off season, and based on what Garry was telling us, like, he's really, really taking a leadership role off the field as well. I'm super excited to see him. It's a very, very tough Western Conference, but I think this team has what it takes. So I'm going to throw the BC Lions in on one side, and on the other side, bit of a redemption arc, but also they're hosting the Grey Cup, and that's the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Bo Levi Mitchell moving from Calgary over to Hamilton is such a cool story. talk about legacy. If he's able to turn this team around and win in Hamilton, that's hosting the Grey Cup, that's big, and I think he's the one to do it because this guy's just got so much talent. I actually got to meet him over in Saskatchewan too, which was really cool.
He's great.
So yeah, I'm gonna say it's the Hamilton Ticats defeating the BC Lions in the Grey Cup. Lock it in because you heard it here first on Huddle Up. That's my prediction.
I like it, and I mean, Bo's a beauty. Talked to him before as well. Met him at the Grey Cup that Hamilton lost in Hamilton. So for the second time in 3 years, they're going to be hosting a Grey Cup and losing it. I feel like that's just bad vibes. The city's not going to be happy. I'm tempted to put them in. I am, and BC hasn't been in a Grey Cup game since 2011. So that would be nice to see them back in. At West, though, I'm going Saskatchewan.
Wow.
I'm going with the Rough Riders. They haven't been in the Grey Cup final since 2013 when they beat the Tiger Cats, and that's the team I'm also going to.
So a little rematch.
I think
10 years later.
10 years later. They're going to lose to Saskatchewan. I like Trevor Harris going to Saskatchewan. I think that defense is really solid as well. They got a lot of playmakers, especially in the secondary, but obviously the big move is the upgrade, and Cody Fajardo just was not getting it done, and to the point where they actually they benched him with a chance at getting a crossover spot, which is crazy last season. So you upgrade at quarterback. Trevor Harris brought in some weapons too, like Darrell Walker, really good receiver. Jake Weineke didn't have the best year last year, but the year before that had a career year and was a touchdown machine. And then you've got Keon Schaefer-Baker, who Garry Peters talked about. That offense is pretty loaded. I really like them, and I love the Bo redemption arc too. I just personally love that arc, and Bo did recruiting too. I feel like it's just the battle of the quarterbacks, the most high-profile ones that switched places and just brought the most people with them. And the people they brought with them aren't just guys that are backups or not impact players. They both brought big impact playmakers with them to these new teams. So only fitting that they play each other for the Grey Cup.
Yeah, shout out. I mean, I would love to see Saskatchewan win. Being there last year and seeing, obviously they weren't playing, but the amount of Rough Riders fans that were showing up anyways.
It's amazing.
That city, they deserve a Grey Cup. So, yeah, I like the prediction.
Let's do one more thing here before we end. Let's talk about, because if you're new to the CFL, and a lot of people might be, if it's your first time watching, welcome, because the CFL is great. We love the CFL. But if you've never watched a game or have only watched a few games or aren't the biggest CFL fan, you might notice some differences watching. And the rules are very different. There are specific ones that are different. I just want to know, what's your favorite CFL-specific rule that you may want to see in other leagues, maybe see other leagues adopt it. At the Super Bowl, Juju Smith-Schuster said he wants one rule that I'll bring up later, or you might bring it up now, to be adopted in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to steal your thunder here, but I'm going to go with the waggle.
That's the one.
Oh, I would add, in Canada, they have where the receivers can start running really fast. I would do that.
What do we all like when we watch football? Offense. Yeah, it's sometimes a nice story when it's a hard defensive battle and a team wins 10-7, but at the end of the day, we want to see stars making big plays, quarterbacks airing the ball out, and the waggle, which is essentially the receivers just getting a nice running start at the defensive backs. It just creates more offense. It is easier to get open. It is such a big advantage on DBs. And yeah, we were just talking to Gary about how it's such a hard job, and this just makes it harder. But at the end of the day, it is really, really exciting, especially when you got some of these big guys right off the snap just steaming right down at you. So I think that's a really exciting rule that, if implemented in other leagues, could be very successful, but also, the CFL having that and being unique in that aspect is just really exciting and cool.
Yeah, I love it. And it makes the DBs play even more impressive to watch, too. Mm-hmm. It's just you man up these guys that are running so fast at you. The field is so much wider as well. They've got so much more space to operate. It's impressive. It's not one of those things where these guys should be discredited in any way. If a guy gets beat, you have so much ground to cover and so much more room for error. So the DBs are impressive. I like no yards, to be honest, on punts. And like, I wanted to go with the other one where like the rule on a missed field goal, you can punt it out of the end zone.
That's cool too.
And it makes like finishes for games just completely bonkers. One that's a little more practical that I'd also like to see other leagues adopt that I love in the CFL is just no yards and giving the returner on punts 5 yards to catch the ball so they can actually do something with it. Like, oftentimes in other leagues, the punt return game is just, it's out of it, because unless your punter is messing up and gives the returner a chance, like, you've got someone down there immediately, or it's angled out of bounds every time, whatever. But because the field is so big and you have to give the returner 5 yards before tackling him, you have room to make a guy miss, and the special teams game becomes that much more important. Like, we've seen so many electric returners in the CFL in the history of the league, and they're so fun to watch. So I would love to see that in every league, and I love that the CFL has something like that, because it's just another way to create big plays, create big moments, and those are always the best moments, those like 100-yard punt returns. They're nuts.
I also think it does make the game a little safer too, which
absolutely.
is nice. I mean, you want your star players to not be injured and to be on the field, especially in the big games. But yeah, both really cool rules that I think the CFL does really well. Another thing that is very, very new that actually pretty much broke while we were recording this, PFF is coming to the CFL, Pro Football Focus, which is a very advanced and unique analytical tool, which is very popular for its use in the NFL. There is a new partnership with the CFL for this season that will give fans access to all of these advanced stats, analytics, and grades that Pro Football Focus publishes each week. So to me, from a fan perspective, that is really cool, and I mean, I'll be excited to, get in, look at everything they have to offer week in, week out, and just keep up with a ton of players that way.
Yeah, I think it's just a smart decision. Everyone knows PFF for the most part if you're a football fan, and now bringing it to the CFL, I also think it'll be cool to see how the players talk about it, because so many players talk about PFF and things they like about it, things they don't.
It can be controversial with some of the grades.
It can
sometimes
be super
we see a star and
controversial.
they're graded pretty low, and it's like, okay, so we'll see.
Exactly. And it's another tool to help just shed light on some of maybe the unsung stars in the league that don't get talked about enough. And that's always a good thing as far as like growing stars, making the game bigger with these bigger names. And it helps new fans just keep an eye on their favorite players. Like, oh, this guy graded really well. Whether it's a good grade or not, or whether it's deserved or not is another question. But you're watching that person more. So there's no downside to this.
Definitely exciting times in the CFL with the league kicking off Thursday on TSN with the Lions taking on the Stampeders. Rematch of pretty big playoff game last year, so we'll be tuned in. I'm sure you all will be as well. Thanks for sticking with us for the first episode of Huddle Up. Let us know in the comments. Who do you want to see us feature on the show? Which players in the CFL? Like I said, we're going to try to do this every single week, get a ton of guests in, and just sharing the biggest stories from the biggest stars. So thank you for sticking with us today, and we'll see you next week.
Break.